Candidates for Congressional District 4 are here in the bunker for some straight talk. I'm Bunker Bob Steinhagen, and this is The Bunker Bob Show. Welcome back to a special edition of the Bunker Bob Show. And I have all three candidates running for Congress in the 4th Congressional District. Now, this is the first of 10 races that I will be covering and that will be coming out in the days to come. I want to give each candidate the opportunity to put their best foot forward, which is why, as I have always done, the candidates received a copy of the questions before they had to decide to participate. Each candidate sat down with me for a one-on-one interview, which is edited together to create the illusion that they're here at the same time, so that you get a sense that this is more than just a conversation, but it is more like a candidate forum. And you'll also notice that I do ask follow-up questions. I challenge each one of the candidates, so you get a much better idea of where they stand rather than the typical candidate forum where each candidate gets 3 minutes to speak. Now, I have never placed time limits on candidates' answers. However, when they go long, and sometimes they do, we will edit it for time, but we will not edit the content of what they are trying to say. And we did the very best we could to ensure that took place. So with all that said, let's meet the candidates. All right, so let's first meet our incumbent. Congressman Pat Fallon has represented North Texans in the Texas legislature since 2013 and proudly serves today as the congressman for Texas' 4th Congressional District, where he serves over 700,000 great American bosses. Prior to his time in the Texas Senate and House, Pat enjoyed a decade-long successful entrepreneurial career, having founded over a dozen successful companies. To raise funds and awareness for pediatric cancer research, Pat entered what has been billed as, quote, the world's greatest endurance challenge, end quote, in 2016. He completed the World Marathon Challenge, a race where competitors attempt to run 7 marathons on 7 continents in 7 days. On January 29, 2016, becoming just the 15th person in the world to do so successfully. He was also the first and still only person to finish the World Marathon Challenge with no previous marathon experience. And nobody was chasing you. That's the thing that's amazing.
My knees still hurt.
Congressman Fallon is a proud graduate of University of Notre Dame, where he played football under the legendary coach Lou Holtz and was a member of the 1988 National Championship team. And upon graduation, Pat received a commission to serve as an officer in the United States Air Force, where he was stationed at Shepherd Air Force Base in Wichita Falls, Texas. Most importantly, we saved the best for last. Pat has been happily married to his lovely wife, Susan, for 17 years, and they have 2 boys, Thomas, 15, and Mac, 12. Congressman Fallon, it is always a great pleasure to have you on the show.
No, thank you, Bob, for having me. I appreciate it.
We have Dr. John Harper is one of 7 kids who was born at home, in a home that had no running water. The son of a Navy veteran and a long-haul trucker, John is the only one in his family to complete high school, and though he was accepted to a major university, he joined the U.S. Air Force at 17 years old.
17.
Is that illegal?
I had to have my mother's permission.
Oh,
believe it
okay.
or not. I really did. I had to get an affidavit.
Okay, all right.
Mom was quite willing to let me go.
Well, and it was there that your path changed, and he was reassigned to Syracuse University for a year to learn how to speak, read, write, and think in the Russian language. You know, John entered the military as an enlisted soldier, earning 2 air medals for the more than 150 reconnaissance missions, and ended his military career as a decorated officer, earning not 1, but a rare 2 meritorious service medals for the 4 years of work he did in Turkey, and as recognition for 20 years of service during the Cold War and Vietnam War eras, respectively. During his service, he attended graduate school at the University of Alabama, where he studied finance and economic modeling, and later earned a CPA and CMA. Following his retirement from the military, John earned a Doctor of Education degree from the University of Houston and served more than 26 years as a vice president, executive vice president, and vice chancellor at a number of higher education institutions. Dr. Harper has served as a Republican precinct chair in Rockwall County and as mayor of Rowlett, our neighbor here in Rockwall. In 2016, his Republican caucus chose John to serve as the elector for Congressional District 4, where he cast his vote for Donald J. Trump to be president of the United States. Most importantly, though, Dr. Harper and his wife of 30 years, Deborah, who is an active member in Texas and National Republican Women's Organizations, have 3 grown children, 9 grandchildren, and 12 great-grandchildren. Well, thank you. It's great to have you here. So I want to introduce Dan Thomas. Dan has a proven record of standing up for what's right, even at a great personal cost. Dan was honored to earn the trust of North Texans as the evening anchor for a local Fox and CBS station, giving facts without bias. So you're basically going out from the frying pan and into the fire. Am I right?
That's right. Yeah, I've had to kind of bite my tongue all these years as a broadcaster and try to draw that line down the middle. You know, as a conservative in the media, and especially in the position that I held, the goal was to have the viewer have no idea what your political leanings are. And I successfully did that.
Now that's funny, I think, to a lot of people who are watching, because that just doesn't that doesn't happen anymore.
Yeah, and over the 21 years that I was in broadcasting, watching the slow decline, and sometimes not so slow, depending on the situation, especially when Donald Trump got into office, it was just like throwing gasoline on a fire. The industry just went down the hill. It was sad to see, because I do believe in the ideals of non-biased journalism, letting the viewer decide what they think, just presenting the facts. That's what I was all about when I was doing that job. And for 21 years, I was pretty proud of the work that we did. Lo and behold, this vaccine mandate snuck up on me and cost me my entire career.
Okay, well, very good. Well, let me finish telling a little bit about you, because I don't want to rob people of the opportunity to know who you are, and you personally know the cost and chaos brought by the woke Washington elite. Obviously, you do. He wants to stop the federal government from infringing on the sovereignty of Texas. He believes in America, the Constitution, and reigning in the federal government. Dan Thomas will stand up for our values and put America first. Now, Dan is a committed husband and father who has been married to his wife, Sadie, for 19 years, and they have 2 children, Lila and Logan, and that's an 11-year-old and a 2-year-old.
Yeah, we spread them apart.
That's pretty fun, I guess, at your house, isn't it?
Yeah, just when you thought you were done with diapers, jumping right back in, right? No, but thankfully he's getting potty trained.
Well, thank you for being here. So, Dan, it's kind of out of the frying pan into the fire for you, out of the media, the liberal media, and into conservative politics, and basically liberal politics, because that's all that the media covers today anyway. So the question is, why are you running for Congress?
Well, I'm running because I believe that we deserve to have our conservative voice heard in Washington. I don't have a dog in the hunt as far as doing business with the federal government. I believe that the big problem here, Bob, is that we don't have a lack of politicians that can talk all the right things on the campaign trail.
I would agree, 100%.
We, time after time, see these politicians that tell us every single thing that we want to hear. They've done these surveys. They know what we want to hear. They tell it to us on the campaign trail. They get up to Washington, and things just seem to slip through the cracks. And lo and behold, you find out more often than not, a lot of these guys are up there for the wrong reasons. They're up there to profit themselves. They're up there because maybe they have a business that does business with a department they just happen to oversee on one of the committees that they sit on. They are doing insider trading. There's been stories written on that, the violations of the Stock Act. I believe that we have a serious corruption issue right now. We don't have a lack of people that talk conservative values. We know what the problems are. As conservatives, we know how to solve them. The reason these things don't get solved is because the people that we're sending up there are seriously conflicted. Their priorities are in a completely different direction in reality when they get to Washington than what they told us their priorities were on the campaign trail. That's why I'm running. That's what I want to change.
Dan, do you look at Donald Trump? He was accused of a lot of things.
Sure.
And do you think that that's pretty common with conservatives? Are you prepared to be attacked and maligned and basically put on a pedestal of you talk corruption, but isn't it? I mean, most conservatives who stand on conservative values, they get attacked unrighteously.
Yeah, I completely agree. There's so much undeserved attack coming from the liberal left in this country aimed solely at destroying personally conservatives, and I hate it. It makes me sick. As a broadcaster, people had no idea what my leanings were. So if you can imagine this, I anchored a newscast on Fox, so liberals would accuse me of being right-wing. I anchored a newscast on CBS. Right-leaning people would accuse me of being liberal. So I'm used to getting attacked from both ways, completely undeserved. And so to me, this will be about 50% less criticism than what I've dealt with for the last 21 years. If I only have to deal with liberals now attacking me, then that would be fantastic. So,
well, Congressman Fallon is recognized largely as being a very conservative member of Congress. What specific votes has he made that cause you to want to run against him?
You know, I think that if your viewers and listeners look at libertyscore.conservativereview.com, you can get a good idea of where your representatives stand.
Okay.
And they look at a large number of votes. I know the Heritage Foundation has a scoring as well.
Yes.
This looks at a few more votes than what the Heritage Foundation looks at. Pat Fallon, as we record this, has been in office for a little bit less than 1 year. And so we have a record to look at.
Yes.
And he's brand new to Congress, essentially, as a freshman congressman. And the votes that I believe that he kind of let slip, if you will, are there's a National Defense Authorization Act. If you look at some of the provisions in that, he says that he was unaware that a red flag law affecting our Second Amendment rights was slipped into that. He voted for it. This is a law that would restrict the gun rights of active duty military if they have, say, for instance, that they were diagnosed with PTSD. This would enable a judge to take away their Second Amendment rights. So Pat Fallon says that he didn't know it was in the bill, and thankfully it has been taken out since he voted for it. But that's the kind of thing that liberals are going to do every single time. They don't take a vote off. They are always going to try to slip something in when you're not watching. So my promise to voters is I will read every bill every time. If I don't have enough time to read it, the vote's going to be no.
Okay.
Another one, your listeners and viewers may feel differently about this, and I respect that, but I don't believe that we should require women to register for the draft. That's a vote that Pat Fallon stands by. He's been on Newsmax defending that view, and that's his viewpoint, and he has a right to it. I believe that women should serve in the military if they feel called to do so. I don't believe that, worst case scenario, we should be forcing women into military service. Thankfully, we haven't had a draft in 50 years, so I think that vote was really more of the kind of thing that I especially hate in Washington, and that's a signal vote, a virtue signal vote, saying I'm not really like the rest of these Republicans. I can agree with this equity notion, and to me, it just leaves a bad taste in my mouth. When you vote for something, we haven't had a draft in 50 years, but yet you want women to go sign up for it. It's just, I think, symptomatic of the misplaced priorities that the Washington elite have. And it's just a symptom of all the bigger problems that we have coming out of Washington.
So when you look at, as a member of Congress, obviously omnibus bills are the bane of Congress, but they are the way Congress moves. And I think it was Thomas Jefferson who says, when you pass a law, it should be, first you should debate it and then wait 2 years before you act on it. And today in Congress, we see bills moving left and right. How do you think that you're going to be able to overcome that? I'm guessing you're not an attorney,
No.
lawyer. Okay, well, that's good. And so that's a plus for you. All right, so go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I actually do. I've read quite a few bills in my time as a journalist,
Okay.
and so that's a big part of actually going to the source. And this is something in my position as the last few years as an anchor, I would just preach time and time again to any journalist fresh out of college that you can't trust what other people say about it. You sure can't trust what politicians say because most of the time they haven't even read the bill.
That is very true.
So you have to go to the source, read it. Number one, as a congressman, you do have a staff. So you need to rely partly on your staff to help you in this endeavor. If you don't have time to read the bill, vote no. That would be my policy.
I like that.
And so, and I completely agree with debate the bill and wait. And that is such a big part of what we have wrong in Washington, trying to ram this stuff down, knowing full well that someone, most of the time it's liberals, is slipping something into this huge bill. You may think that you're voting on something because it funds the troops, and that's a good thing. But if you're not reading the bill, you're just rubber stamping it on through because, hey, it's $1 trillion. Let's get that money spent.
Yeah.
And, then your priorities are just simply misplaced. This is the job of being a representative, is making sure that doesn't happen. So, there can be no greater purpose to that job than stopping this kind of garbage from slipping through.
Dan, one of the things that's important, and you said a lot of liberals push things into bills, but frankly, Republicans are as guilty, if not more guilty, of doing it as well. A Republican does not a conservative make. How are you going to hold the Republican Party, the Republican Congressional Caucus, accountable to conservative values?
I think a lot of it is you can't do it by yourself. The Freedom Caucus, I think, has a great leg up on that in Washington. And so, you have to team up with like-minded people because, the rhinos are definitely, it's half of the Republican Party.
Yes, it
is.
is.
There. That's the one thing I felt like Donald Trump not only had every Democrat, he also had about half the Republican Party working against him. Remarkable, the things that he was able to accomplish up there with all of that working against him. So it's building a coalition with like-minded people, and it's standing by your guns. I'm not naive. I don't think that Washington's going to say, "Oh my gosh, Dan Thomas is here. We better clean up." But this is one of the most conservative districts in the entire country. We deserve to be 100% on having our conservative voice heard in every debate, 100% of the time. And it's what I truly believe. I'm not in this for any other reason other than my life got turned upside down, and I'm sick of being ignored by the Washington elite who are constantly, not only with this, constant government overreach, destroying businesses, upending people's lives. I'm going up there to do my part, at least, to stop it. Because what are we going to do 20 years from now? This is how it starts. When the government decides that they can just enforce a medical procedure on people without their permission or against their will and pulling every kind of string imaginable to force you to do it, what's going to happen in 20 years when my daughter comes to me and she's in the workforce, she's got the dream job of her life, and she wants to start a family, but now her boss is asking her to undergo some medical procedure. What am I going to say? Oh, that started back when I was working, and I didn't do anything about it. No, we're all going to do our part. And yes, this district doesn't run the entire Congress, but we deserve to have our conservative voice heard in this debate. If every district did their part, we could put an end to this. It starts right here.
Very good. Dr. Harper?
Why do I want to be running for election? And the answer is, as I look to Congressional District 4, I want every one of the 12 counties that make up District 4 to receive the proper amount of attention, proper quality of attention, and that's why I'm running for office. I can tell you that something's wrong right now, and I can't exactly put my finger on it, but Mr. Fallon, who is the incumbent, I'll just say it, he's not representing all of CD4 as he should.
Okay.
And I will.
And so can you give me a vote or votes that Congressman Fallon has taken that you disagree with?
I don't have any particular difficulty with what he voted for.
Okay.
I probably would have voted the same way. That is not why I would like to replace Pat Fallon. My instincts, my guts tell me there's something wrong, and I'm wanting to have a chance to fix it. What is wrong is that we're not getting all of the counties in CD4 the kind of constituent service they should have. I'll be honest with you. I see a lot of our congressman who's on TV, and he's talking about international affairs. And he's not talking about issues that are facing those 12 counties. I wonder why. Why isn't he talking to the mayors? Why isn't he talking to the county judges? Why isn't he talking to the chairman of the GOP and others who have a leadership role in their respective county? And they're starving for attention. They're starving for a way to get their concerns expressed to the right people in Congress. And instead, what we're hearing is, let me tell you about China. Let me about China. There's more than China. That's all I'm saying. That's what I feel.
So specifically, how is he not representing those counties?
Well, maybe start with the way he was put into the job. And I think that kind of sets up the whole criticism that I have for him. Back when when John Ratcliffe resigned to become director of national intelligence, so he had already won the primary. Now what do? We're not going to have another primary election. Instead, we formed a kind of an odd situation.
Well, it was based upon Republican rules established by the party.
Sure.
So yeah.
But the problem is we went through a situation where 150 people selected the person who would be on the ballot in lieu of John Ratcliffe.
Yes.
Okay, 150 people. I would not suggest that's a vote by the people. That's a vote by 150
But
people.
those were precinct chairs. You were former precinct chairs. Those precinct chairs are elected offices,
Yes.
and so they are representing the people, and it is the way the system works.
No complaint.
Okay.
My complaint is I don't believe he was ever vetted.
Well, not vetted. Well, I mean, you're going from the ridiculous to the absurd. I mean, he was a city councilman. He was a state house member. He served in the state senate. I mean, if there's anyone been vetted, he would be the one who's way more vetted than either one of you. I mean, he's got a record
And a voting record.
Yes.
Yes, you can take a look at what he did as a state representative. You can take a look at what he did as a state senator. He was very limited, I think, in what he had to do, and he did fine.
I focus on how someone votes, and you're saying you would vote the same,
Yeah, he
largely
votes
in the
conservative.
same way.
Sure.
Yeah, so
This
you
is
would agree that
Texas.
he's a conservative. Yeah.
This is Texas. That's how we vote in Texas.
Not necessarily. I mean, the whole reason I do this show is because Republicans don't act like Republicans. That our party is fraught with members in Congress who are not conservative. We've got a lot of rhinos here in Texas, you know, who say one thing and do another. Do you agree with that or no?
You'd have to give me more specifics. I'm not a rhino. I can tell you that.
Yeah, well, I'm absolutely shocked that you want specifics. I got to tell you, John. I mean, what's concerning to me is you're trying to get rid of one of the most conservative members of Congress. You're trying to replace him, and you can't even identify the fact that we have a real problem in the Republican Party with people who go in and say one thing and do another. So since you're not going to run against him on his record, you want to talk about that he is reckless. How exactly is he reckless?
His conduct has been reckless. They want him removed from the Armed Services Committee because of conflicts of interest. He's a freshman. He's serving his first terms. He's being investigated in his first term. The first conflict of interest was December 8, 2021, just 5 weeks ago, Bob. A fellow named John Solomon. I'm sure you've heard of him.
I'm not familiar with John Solomon.
Well, so he published an article and basically says there's a cozy relationship that Pat Fallon has with China. What is that cozy relationship? He spends millions of dollars to purchase Chinese T-shirts and hats to sell them to young and inexperienced soldiers on military bases. This cozy relationship that I'm talking about is because he does spend millions there and receives millions back from the sale of those products. And while he is ostracizing, he doesn't disclose that he has this China relationship.
Okay.
That is the problem.
All right.
Nothing illegal about that. He doesn't disclose it. Wait a minute. Why aren't you disclosing the Chinese relationship that you have? Why are you covering that up?
Has that okay? So this is still an accusation, is it not? Has he?
No.
Oh, so he's been convicted. He's been convicted of something.
I'm going to show you the headline.
No.
In which they give the details of his relationship.
That's the press. Has he been convicted? Has it been proven that it's true?
What's illegal is the fact that he has not reported all of his relationships, and he's now serving on the Armed Services Committee.
Armed Services Committee.
Yes. Thank
Mm-hmm.
you. He never discussed it with the minority leader, Kevin McCarthy.
Thank you for the.
There's more to it. There's a lot more to it.
Okay.
How about insider trading? Let's talk about that.
Yes, and Pat Fallon actually came on this show last year and dealt with all of these allegations head on. He has acknowledged that he reported late some issues, and I've actually had him on the show. We talked about that. I don't know if you saw the show.
I know what he had to say.
Okay, so what did he? So how did you feel? Good. So how did you feel about his responses to those?
One of the first things he did after getting on the committee was to do some stock transactions. Nothing illegal about that. However, what is illegal is not reporting those transactions. He has 30 days.
And he reported them late, and he acknowledged that. So you heard
118 times, Bob. Can I just show you this?
Sure.
I don't know if they can see it on TV or not.
Well, there you go.
Okay, it's a little bit hard to read. I'll read it to you. These are headlines in the news that have come out just in the month of December. The first one says, a retired general files a case in Denton County Court over a business dispute with Representative Pat Fallon. Dallas Morning News. What was that all about? Here's what most people think that are writing about it.
Okay, I'm going to stop you right there. This is not a show to bring conjecture, innuendo, or speculation.
Right.
Okay, I really don't give a hoot what people think happened.
Okay.
Listen. Donald Trump was excoriated by the press, and accusation after accusation.
That's why
and
Bob, you're being too defensive. I'm going to give you the URLs. Read it.
Well, all of your sources are coming from the media, and that's my problem that I'm having right now. And again, I go back to what is a conservative? A conservative is how someone votes. Donald Trump's personal life is not someone I would emulate. But I still believe him to be the greatest president in my lifetime.
I agree with that.
Okay, so the accusations are not the same as what is true, and
violations of the law that have been proven is what I'm talking about.
Okay, but what you just read is a civil case, not a criminal one, and it hasn't even been proven. Yet. Okay, again, so.
All right, how about a judgment?
Go ahead.
We'll give you that one.
Great.
This is the most recent one.
Perfect.
There was a study done. It was done by Business Insider.
Wait a minute. You said a judgment. A judgment is something that a court case has found.
Well.
So a court has ruled. How has the court? No, you said judgment.
Okay, I won't say judgment. I'll say story. I feel like we're getting into combat here. We don't need to be doing that.
Well, but again, you just seem to be throwing as much crap at the congressman, hoping something sticks, so that you can get elected in his place. I'm not okay with that. Again, what I'm trying to do, John, is I'm trying to understand why you're running for Congress against a conservative.
Right.
And by the way, you have not proven anything criminal about Pat Fallon. What you have done is created the illusion that there's something nefarious going on. That's not okay. Why not talk about why not talk about what you believe, what you're about?
I would like to make one more point.
Sure, go ahead.
I'm as conservative as Mr. Fallon. I'm as conservative as Dan Thomas. In fact, I like Dan a lot.
Great guy.
He's
right here. So yeah,
he and his wife and my wife and I have had many pleasant conversations. I think he's a great guy.
Yeah.
The problem with Dan is his youth and inexperience. You know that. And I think he's going to be a congressman. It's just not his time right now.
Okay.
But my point is this. If you want a conservative congressman, one of the three of us will do it.
All right.
If you want someone who doesn't have a checkered past or at least a threat of these issues, then me.
All right. So why are you running for re-election, and which votes are you most proud?
Well, this district deserves a conservative fighter.
Yeah.
And I always, when I ran for office the first time, which was in '09, I thought to myself, I want to vote for what kind of candidate would I want to vote for? That's the candidate I want to be. I want somebody that is willing to come to your door, look you in the eye, tell you what they're going to do, and then follow through and do it. And it also reflects, obviously, my values. And we've got a lot of work to do. I went to D.C. The choice I made to leave the Texas Senate, which is a great job, and to go up to the swamp was because I really believe the conservatives, we needed better messengers to convey our message, what it is to be a conservative. I can't tell you how many folks, when you talk to, let's say, folks that are culturally very democratic, obviously African Americans being number one, Hispanics following closely second behind. And when you talk to the folks that have become Republican since in those two groups, they'll say, I was always a Republican. I just didn't know it. See, so we need to do that, that outreach. And but also we're losing so many young people as well to the wokeism because of the universities.
Yes. And
constant messaging you see from TV commercials and Hollywood. And we need to better describe and show what conservatism is. And it's so many wonderful things. It's about, we're conservatives out of love of country, out of love of God, out of love of family, out of love of fairness, out of love of capitalism, out of love of prosperity. Whereas the left, what has their messaging been? And, I'm like, it's always inequity and this racism and this and that. Because their power, comes not from the solution. Their power comes from the problem itself. Therefore, it's not in their interest to solve anything and even invent and propagate a problem. We know that, and under any empirical evidence or study, that racism is a constantly diminishing phenomenon in this country. But the left wants to still live like it's 1850 or 1950, and quite frankly, it's not.
Well, and when you hear from Dr. Harper and pose these attacks against you, for instance, the T-shirt business that you're in, and you doing millions and millions of dollars of trade with China, how do you respond to these accusations that are coming from the press?
Well, there's a lot of them because the people of the 4th Congressional District, if your congressman is not getting attacked by the media, you should be worried.
I would agree with that 100%.
But Bob, in serious, we've got a man right there, Donald Trump.
Yep.
The press took it to a new level with him. Does any Republican primary voter in Congressional District 4 think that President Trump got a fair shake from the media?
No.
Probably very few. Do you think Ron DeSantis is getting a fair shake? Is Ted Cruz getting a fair shake? They just wrote an article about his 13-year-old daughter. I mean, what the hell is wrong with these people? Wow. They are jackals. Rand Paul, you name a conservative, they get hit. John Ratcliffe got hit.
Oh, yeah.
So I'd love to, individually itemize. So I started a business with $80. It's an apparel business. And they can't even write a straight article about that. I've started it in the 90s as a kid. And it grew into a company that had nearly, several different little companies that kind of were all combined to employ almost 100 people. I'm very proud of that. And the fact is they try to turn a positive into a negative.
Well, what about all these contracts with military bases? Mm-hmm. That was when you were in Congress?
No, all of them were before. All of them.
That is an omission that Dr. Harper.
Of course he did, because he's desperate to give people a reason to vote really against me. I don't know if it's really for him, but let's be really clear here. I started these businesses in the 90s. They grew. You know what we do? We sell T-shirts and keychains and trinkets, things like that. Me being on the Armed Services Committee has no bearing in that. Nobody's compelled to come in and purchase anything. They're just T-shirt shops. My wife owns them now. That's it. And we give. By the way, we provide money. We pay to be there. We're not giving anything. My wife pays to have that location. A percentage of the sales goes back to MWR and the base exchange.
And one thing I did notice in reading this article is that the House Ethics Committee has reviewed you transferring ownership to your wife. Is that true?
No, they did, because it all happened before I even got into Congress.
I see.
Yeah, I said, what do we need to do? Do I need to sell these or transfer them to a spouse? I go, oh, no, you can transfer them to a spouse. That's fine. And
so the reason you didn't disclose this to Kevin McCarthy is not because you were trying to hide something. It was just simply why?
It just never came up, because they said, you don't handle your house ethics stuff, did you? Yes. What does he care if my wife sells T-shirts and keychains?
Well, finally,
I don't think he's asked anybody what their wives do. I mean, that's not his role either. It's what House ethics says.
Yes, and so the other one
And just
brought up
one
yes,
because it was a hit piece in an attack article.
it was
In apparel. Okay, you got an iPhone? Where's this made?
China.
Unfortunately, China.
All
right, so everybody throw their iPhones
Yeah,
away.
I
You know,
got
I mean,
one.
you got your clothing on. Where's that made?
Yeah.
96% of clothing is not made in the United States. So if you're in the apparel industry, you're clearly going to be an importer of some sort. But I was very proud of the fact that nearly half of our clothing was produced domestically. That's off the charts awesome. But then
the article does say that, but he kind of dismisses it.
No, he twisted it and lied by saying half of the stuff, but the other half of the stuff I get from China. That's not true. We get it from all over the world.
Okay.
The press lies. We know they're jackals.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. What about Mr. Harper's issue with you about the 118 times that you violated the Stock Act, totaling to this again another article that they say it totaled around $9 million.
Okay, I filled out paperwork late.
Yeah.
That was it. It was accurate. It was just late because I thought any stock transactions had to be reported on an annual basis, which we do in the Texas legislature, and which what Congress used to do. So I did make that mistake, but I discovered it. I told on myself back in May, and I said, "Oh my God, sorry about this." So I was up to date, from January to May, and I disclosed it all. Since then, so this is old news,
right? No,
Since
you
then,
actually the thing that viewers need to understand is we've already talked about this on the show. Dr. Harper, I asked him about your response, and it was pretty anemic.
Yeah, well, for the last 7 months, everything's been filled out on time and accurate. No one's ever said that it wasn't accurate, and there was nothing to be gained by filing them a few months late. I caught the error, and I fixed it. That's it. To say that that's insider trading is like saying jaywalking is equivalent to capital murder. It's a joke. It was a clerical error. That's it.
So the 118 what is is that 118 different stocks? Is that what the
No,
what this
then
is?
they double and triple and quadruple count stocks, because if you do covered calls, and this gets really complicated, you purchase the stock and then you sell the option. So they count that as two transactions. And then if somebody calls it away from you, they count that as an action.
Okay.
So it was the trading that I did between January and May before I reported. That's it. And the 9 million is an invented figure because they count the same money over and over again.
Gotcha.
I have the accounts.
Yes.
Okay. So we
And
know.
you brought all of your
come here,
financial
come on.
disclosure
To
statements.
our folks,
Yes.
friends at home, if anyone wants to see all of these transactions, this is for the whole year, they're welcome to it, because this is the only active trading account I had. And I made 4.6% total return in 2021. If you had made, which is awful, because
that's
if
pretty
you
bad.
had bought, if the Nasdaq, I believe, went up, if I got to get these right, one of them went up 21%. The S&P 500, I think, went up 27%, and then one of them went up 19%. The Dow Jones. I did 4.6. I'm the worst inside trader in the world if I inside traded, which clearly I did not. And it was the press just trying to attack. They've done it with several Republicans, but that one particular outfit, you know who they praised? Liz Cheney. Of course.
Oh,
she can do
okay.
no wrong now.
Yeah, yeah.
But if you stand with President Trump and you stand on conservative principles, they try to attack you for any reason necessary. In fact, one of them was so disgusting, they said, well, he owns $50,000 worth of General Electric stock. He's on the Armed Services Committee. I bought it in 1997. Yeah. I mean, I've had it for 20-something years and it just sits in an account. I have assets because I was fortunate and blessed to have some money. I own stocks and bonds and REITs and other investment vehicles and real estate too. I mean, what are you supposed to do? So what I'm doing, so the jackals can never have another bite at this apple. I'm putting it all in a blind trust, and I'm never going to have to deal with this again. Clearly nothing nefarious went on because I didn't make any dang money. If you're trading on insider information, they usually make 300% or at least double their money. There was an accusation from one of Mr. Thomas's supporters. She stood up and said, Pat Fallon has doubled his net worth in the last year. Really? Well, for that lady, I have this to say to you. If you'd like to prove that, all you have to do is put up $10,000 and we'll go to an arbiter. If you can prove it, I will give you $1 million. I just made an oral contract. But if you're wrong, I keep that 10 grand. I'm going to take my family to Europe with that money. Okay. Because it's just all bogus. So let's get on to some real issues.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I'm glad, but I want to thank you
for
bringing that up. And by the way, this goes out to the opponents too. Gentlemen, if you think and you want to continue with this, and that anything nefarious or told was going on, You put up 100 grand, and I'll match it with 200,000. We'll go to an arbiter down one of the AAAs, and if you prove your case, you can keep all the money. But if you can't, I won't keep it. Neither of them are going to step up to the plate because they know it's just political expediency. They need a pretext to run because I have a rock solid conservative record, and we've provided world-class constituent services to the people of the 4th District. And I've had dozens of in-person town halls. I've kept every promise that I've made, not only while I ran for Congress, but the 8 years in the Texas legislature and the 3 years I served on the city council. That's why we win every election by an average margin of 75 to 25, because that resonates with folks. He seems like a nice guy. I like him. He votes great. He calls me back when I call him, and he's fighting socialism. Winning. Well, what did President Trump say? You're going to win so much, you're going to get tired of winning. And Mr. President, I do that out of love. But that's the deal.
What Dr. Harper is saying, one of the biggest reasons he's running is because constituent service has not met, is so deplorable, for lack of a better term. He didn't use that term. I did. So
did he provide an example?
Yes, he's saying that you are not talking with local Republican. You're not talking with the mayors, the local leaders of the party, or county chairs, those types of people.
Bold-faced lie. I mean, so all right, if he then brings somebody out, and who am I not talking with? Did he give an example? He
did not.
Of course he didn't, because it's not true. It's silly season. We know this. And that's the thing about Republican primary voters, which is so magnificent, is they're smart and they get it. They can't be led like sheep because we're lions. The Dems are a bunch of sheep. Meh. That's what they say. Oh, vote for this person. Yes. That's the whole superdelegate garbage, where basically a few folks in a smoky room were going to decide that Hillary Clinton could not be beat because they screwed it up in 2008. So they made certain that she was going to be their nominee. We don't act like that. We're smart. So you can say whatever you want. I mean, that's the scary thing. And I really think we should change federal libel laws. So you can say anything you want about an elected official. I mean, crazy stuff, right?
Yeah.
You saw it with, Kavanaugh was judiciary, but they can say anything. And he can't hit back at him because he's a public figure. Like Britain is very different. If you say something, you can say that somebody's awful or you don't like them and they're terrible at their job because that's an opinion. But when you state something as fact, like that lady did about doubling their net worth, that's a bold-faced lie.
Yes.
It has no basis in fact at all, which we can clearly see. And this has been independently certified, and it will be on our website under fake news. And because you got to fight back, damn
Absolutely.
it. We're going to fight back. I'm going to fight the socialists and the Marxists. I'm going to fight, too, for my reputation and my integrity.
Yeah.
Because my parents raised me to do the right thing, to be a Christian, to be moral and ethical. And you know that you can't be in business and be successful if you're not moral and ethical, because word gets out. The fact that in 30 years of doing business, you know how many times I've seen the inside of a civil courtroom? Never. Wow. Not once. 0 times. And I know what Harper says, there's this general that sued him.
Yes.
Untrue. That's a bold-faced lie. That gentleman's not suing me. I filed arbitration against him. And so then he's a lawyer. And he's a lobbyist. They didn't say that either, did they, Bob?
No, I did not know that.
And did you also know that that gentleman never put $1 into the business that I gifted him 10% on? No. Did you know that gentleman made about $600,000 for doing absolutely nothing over 13 years? No. And did you also know that when I called the gentleman right before I was going in to get sworn into Congress, because I thought I had to divest everything, I said, I'm going to give you that 10% fair market value of the company that's probably worth in the neighborhood of between 800 and 1.2 million. I was going to give him his 10%, which roughly saying, for sake of argument for the radio, 100 grand. And he wanted 80% of the company's value. And well, I'm not going to do that because he knew he had leverages. It was a political shakedown. And it would be a story that if sitting member of Congress and reserve general were to say, okay, so we'll see who wins that arbitration case.
It is interesting that you've actually created a business and you've made money. You've actually gone into Congress as a millionaire, and it is a little backward. And we talked about it on the last time you were here. We talked about the fact that you've kind of done this backward. You're supposed to go in poor and then come out rich, and you've actually kind of done the exact.
Well, I don't want to go out poor. I just want to stay where I'm at.
Right. No, but you haven't made the money that you could have had you been doing insider trading.
You know what? And let's go beyond honest.
Yep.
Let's give some folks some great radio,
some straight talk,
yes.
Damn it,
and go frank and candid. This is the path I've chosen, so I'm not complaining. I want to preface that. I could have made way more money over the last 12, 13 years focusing on business. This is your prime earning years, but that's not my calling. I made dough. I was very fortunate. I worked my tail off. And I chose this path because this country's given so much for me. It paid for my college. It gave me my first job in the Air Force. And I love this country because it truly is the greatest one in history's ever known. So you either believe those things or you don't. And if you believe them, fight for them. Step up. When Obama won, I was screaming at the television. My wife said, you got to channel this in some way. And this isn't healthy. I said, what the hell do you want me to do, baby? She goes, you can run for city council. It's in May. And she was pregnant. I said, yeah, but you're pregnant. And we ended up winning the election. And then 9 days later, she gave birth. Okay. She couldn't even go to my swearing in because she was in the hospital. Right? So,
I didn't know
but
that.
we did that, and it was the right thing to do for my path. You know what it never says on a tombstone? It never says he had a pile of money. It never says she drove a fast car, and it never said that they had a big house. It always says what you did with your life, the accomplishments that you did for others or things greater than yourself. Is this country greater than you are, Bob? Yes. Is it greater than me? Of course. God, Texas, families, friends, all of that. So choose your path.
So when Dr. Harper says that the way you were elected, even though it was the rules of the party, the way you were put on the ballot for the primary, he says that you weren't fully vetted, and I pushed back on that. And
Thank you.
And these are elected members. These are elected people. Those precinct chairs. Every one of them is elected. You did everything according to the rules to get elected. But for some reason, even though you were a city councilman, a state rep, state senate, his argument is you were never vetted.
Terrible argument. And I was the most vetted because I had gone through a city council race. I had gone through a state rep race. And then let's talk about the state senate race. I knocked off a 17-year incumbent that needed to go.
Wow.
He spent in the neighborhood of $1.7 million.
Wow.
Hired op research. They scurried the planet trying to find things. I don't know how much he spent, but it was tens of thousands, if not $100,000. That's vetted. They found nothing. There wasn't anything because there's nothing there. Never been arrested, never seen the inside of a courtroom in a civil case. But anyway, nothing there. It is a pretext. Mr. Harper has no good reason to run. He's certainly entitled to, because I also want to be careful about this.
Absolutely.
This is not an appointment, and this is not a coronation. This is an election, and it is to be earned.
Yes.
He has every right to run, and I applaud his decision to run. I don't know why he's running. But if he focused on what he would bring to the table, I would love to become friends with these folks.
Yeah, and what I like
but they
most...
They can't, and they start lying. Prove it as a lie. And then, listen, if you say something that's inaccurate and then it's proven that you were wrong and you just stop saying it, I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
I'm fine with that. We've all done that before, and we correct the error. But it's not true, and you continue to say it, then you're bearing false witness against your neighbor, and that is not the Christian thing to do. So it's unfortunate, but again, it's silly season, Bob.
Very good. Thank you. Well, the next question is, do you have a faith? And if so, what is it? And how does it guide you if elected or reelected? John?
I love that question. Thank you for asking. A
Sure.
lot of people are hesitant to ask that question, and I think we have to talk about it. I'll give you my bullet points because I thought about this. I want to be very sure that I express myself. Because, number one, yes, I do have a faith. And my gosh, after what I've been through in the military and what I've been through in other situations, by the way, during presidential elector, I received as many as 1,000 pieces of mail every day.
Wow.
Phone calls before my voice mailbox filled up.
Wow.
And they all had, at least some, not all of them, but a minority were, I'm going to kill you. I'm going to attack your wife. I'm going to poison your dogs.
Wow.
I mean, it's pretty serious stuff.
Yes, it is.
So if you don't have faith, you're in the wrong business. That's all I got to say. Look, I'll give you my history. I grew up in the Roman Catholic Church, and at that time, literally everybody in my community attended the same Roman Catholic Church.
And what was that community? Where did you grow up?
I actually was born in Massachusetts.
Okay.
And so this was in New England at the very time that we're talking about.
Yeah.
It would have been Providence, Rhode Island.
And that would have been the prominent faith in that area
Absolutely.
of the country. Yeah.
If it wasn't an Italian Roman Catholic, it was an Irish Roman Catholic. That's right. I fit the latter bill. So,
okay, very good.
And again, I received my first communion and confirmation, serious religious faith. Later, for many reasons, I joined the Episcopal Church, which is very close to the Catholic Church. And I still practice that faith 60 years later. Deborah and I attend the Church of the Incarnation in Dallas. That's an Episcopal church. We're not members, but we do attend regularly, either in person or remotely via the internet. What are we doing these days? Amazing.
Yeah.
I've been a Sunday school teacher, an acolyte master, an elder of the church, and unabashedly, we tell you, Deborah and I pray every evening together. That's what we do. So along with my religious faith, I have some other tests that I think are important for me, and I want to share those with you. Number one, having served in Rotary, there is what they call the four-way test. And the question is, number one, is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned? That's a great set of 4 questions.
Sure is.
There's also one other I want to tell you that I follow very, very closely. I love my time in the military. I would not change it for anything. It changed my life. I had some of the best commanders you could ever think of. And one of the things that they did at the Air Force Academy, the first year they graduated a class, and it was this. They adopted an honor code. We will not lie, steal, or cheat, nor tolerate among us anyone who does.
It's the same. It's the same honor code at Texas A&M.
I think they got it from the Air Force Academy.
It started when the school started. Yeah.
The school is a lot older than the academy. The academy was 59, I think.
Yeah.
So something like that.
Yeah.
And then lastly, I did fly more than almost 200 very dangerous combat crew missions, and then another 4 years on the ground in Turkey that were dangerous. And I'll just say this.
Yeah, Turkey's not a safe place.
No. God protected me. I know that.
Fantastic. Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Dan?
Bob, I'm a born-again Christian. I'm unashamed to talk about it. I feel like we could do an entire podcast on just that
Absolutely.
issue. My Christian faith guides me in every decision I make. It guided me this morning when I woke up. It guides my parenting. It guides how I react to somebody in traffic that they have
That's
cut
the
me
real
off.
test, isn't
yes,
it? Yeah.
exactly. And I find myself praying in the car quite a bit as I drive around the district. But and it's something that I'll absolutely bring with me to Washington. It never leaves me. I believe that Jesus Christ is the best role model a person can have in this life, and I believe that we are called to get involved in these debates when necessary. The Apostle Paul's a great example of that. His life, not being afraid of what it cost him personally to preach the faith. I believe there's a lot of inspiration to be drawn there from that. I'm a Christian. I'm a member of a First Baptist Church Sherman. Okay. And my family, everybody, we're there every Sunday. If you want to meet up with us, I'd love to see you there.
Very good. Very good. Congressman?
Yes, and I'm a Christian. And as a Christian, one of the things I believe sincerely is that you or anyone else should be allowed to worship the Almighty to the dictates of your conscience. That's the beauty of being a Christian. You're so secure in your faith that if someone doesn't share it, that's okay. And you have a major world religion where many of its adherents, in fact, the majority, unfortunately, believe, if you believe the polling, that if someone leaves their faith, they should be killed. That's not what a loving God would want. That's evil.
Right.
So as a Christian, I think we should do the Christian thing. I try to wake up. I wake up every morning and I say to myself, how are you going to be a positive influence today in other people's lives? And everyone that you encounter, are you going to spread joy?
Thank you very much. So if elected or reelected, do you see yourself as a representative or trustee of the people? Now, a representative will act in ways that he or she believes those who elected them would want them to act, while a trustee acts in ways that they believe are in the people's best interest, even if those who elected them oppose such actions, like shutting down businesses and places of worship during a pandemic. Congressman, how would you answer that?
It seems to me that definition, the trustee is more like an overlord. And I'm not anything but. In fact, that's the reason I've run in the first place, is you need to be a representative of your district. We have about 770,000 people that live here. A case in point is certification of the election. Okay.
Yep.
We got 1,000 phone calls and emails. Every one of the ones that we received, to my knowledge, wanted us to not certify the election. That was a pretty easy vote for me to take anyway. But I think that we're very fortunate in so much as what I would like to do and the way I would vote, I feel the vast majority of people in this district agree probably close to 100% of the time. Like, I don't know. I'm sure there's something out there somewhere.
Yeah.
Because you're not going to get everybody to agree all the time. Sometimes good conservatives will have, opposite sides of an issue.
Sure.
But I think the standard there should be, Ronald Reagan had a standard. He said it was 80-20, right? He said, if you're with me 80% of the time, you're 80% friend, not 20% enemy. I'm probably not as generous as the former president, the great president. I'm probably more like 95-5 guy, maybe, or 92-8. It's hard to say exactly, but I'm definitely in the 90s. I want you there a little bit more than that. But you got to work with people. But I also understand when I'm in Congress, members aren't all from Texas. They're not all from the 4th Congressional District. Some Republican members have different districts. Some of them pretty much, they just vote differently because I'd rather have somebody that's voting with us 65% of the time as a Republican than a Democrat replacement that never votes with us. I just want to be practical like that.
It kind of goes to Milton Friedman's argument about trading the good for the perfect. That's the fallacy of some politics.
I got to steal that.
We try to do that too much, right?
How about, everybody that runs, like these two the guys that we got running here are claiming that they're going to do all these things. I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. Listen, I can't do anything alone. I need 217 other people to vote with me. I want to make it very clear because this is an important point for our folks back home. I'm a better member of Congress because I served in the Texas legislature. I truly am. In the Texas Senate for 2 years, in the Texas House 6 years. And I was a better Texas legislator because I had served on the city council for 3 years and as mayor pro tem of the fastest growing city in America. And I was a better council member because I had been in business, because I had signed the front of paychecks, because I had been a conservative activist. Everybody gets in front of a microphone talking to Bunker Bob, or when we have a town hall, they're going to say, I'm the second coming of Barry Goldwater, or I'm just like Ronald Reagan. That sounds great, but it's bunk. It is coal. Deeds are a character's diamond. What have you done?
Thank you very much. Dan, how would you answer that?
Your example of shutting down businesses and places of worship, first of all, before I answer this, is obviously something I would adamantly oppose.
Good to hear.
The ridiculous message that we send, we left the liquor stores open and closed down the churches. What kind of nonsense is this? But as you pose it, I think that I would be more of the trustee version simply because I believe in the Constitution. Because I believe that when you're sworn in, you swear to defend the Constitution of the United States. I believe that a lot of our problems, if not all of them, can be brought back into line if we could just put into place constitutional values. If that's not popular at the moment back in the district, they can go ahead and vote me out because that's not what I plan to do. I'm not going to go against my values just so I can be popular back in the district. If a lot of people decide that it's popular to go against the Constitution, they have a right to vote me out, and they should, because that's not something that I'm going to bend on. The Constitution allowed us to do so many things when we obeyed it in this country. I kind of look at it like it was like bumpers. It's you go to a bowling alley and your kid bowls. They get the bumpers to keep you from rolling a gutter ball, right? The Constitution allowed for so much innovation in this country. Think about the contribution that America has made to technology worldwide over the time that we've been in existence. It's mainly because we have a Constitution that respects individual rights. Your right to pursue whatever dream you want, innovate in the way that you see fit. Your government is protecting your rights. Years pass, hundreds of thousands of years of history prove that time after time after time, people that could have been innovating, could have been discovering new ways to do things, were instead fighting wars, oppressed by their government, kept from doing these things. We've developed this wonderful system. It's all because of the Constitution of the United States. We need to bring back this country to constitutional values. And if that's not what's popular, if a representative is going to do a little polling, put their finger in the air, and try to decide what's popular this week, well, that's not going to be how I do it. I suppose in the way that you define it, I would be more of a trustee.
Okay. So, John, how would you answer that?
Well, first I have to start with the question. This seems to beg the question, are you a leader or are you a follower? That's really what we're talking about here. If I'm all concerned about those conservative ratings that I get from different groups, I'm going to follow them. If instead I'm here to take care of the 12 counties and the people in those 12 counties, all of the people in those 12 counties, then I'm going to be a leader. And a leader is going to be talking to his people. And for example, I would say I have to listen to the constituents, and together we decide what are the choices that are available to us, and then we debate what we believe meets that four-way rotary test and that Air Force honor code. Once we've done that, then I, as your public servant, can make the right decision for everybody in the Congressional District 4. I don't want to be chasing the ratings of conservatives. You'll see conservative votes come out of me, but I am not going to say I have to go take care of the people in West Texas. That's not my district. My district is Congressional District 4, North and Northeast Texas.
So when you say debate
Sure.
the issue, how do you mean that? How
well,
does
I'm
that
right
work?
back to it. It's very simple. Have you talked to mayors in your district? Have you talked to the county judges in your district? Have you talked to the GOP chairs? If you haven't, if you yourself haven't, then how can you really know what are the issues that they want to talk about that are causing them the greatest concern?
So you don't mean you just mean getting feedback,
Oh,
not
yeah.
necessarily debate.
Not debate in a formal manner, but
Gotcha.
Debate is we're on the phone and Joe says, well, I don't want you to do that. And I
Right.
say, well, Joe, if I don't do that, here's the issue. What do you think? I mean, which is the worse? Which is the better? That's debate in my way of thinking.
Thank you very much. What do you see as the greatest threat to our nation as a member of Congress? How do you plan to address this threat if elected or reelected? John, how would you answer that?
Well, I see the greatest threat to our nation as being the division in our country that we're facing.
Talk about that.
I really do believe that. As I said, so many of our issues are self-made. President Biden and his administration, his socialist administration, have created more division than ever before. It seems
that's so
like he
true.
picked up with President Obama, and between Obama and Biden, all we get is weaponization of the government against the people. And it's causing great concern and great disunity. This is disunity between families. This is disunity between governments. It's a cancer. And I really believe we have got to address that. How do we go about addressing the disunity? And I just think we have to be a lot more open than we have been in the past. We're not going to allow such things as the IRS seeking out nonprofit activities that are conservative and trying to shut them down. We're not going to let the IRS hire 86,000 agents so they can spy on us. Here we have now Speaker Pelosi saying, by the way, anybody who had anything to do with the January 6th riot in D.C., you are not eligible for re-election or running for Congress. Now, I wasn't there, so I guess I'm okay. On the other hand, there are people that were just present. And yet, in her mind, that was an insurrection, and it has to be dealt with as though we need to ship everybody off to an island called Elba somewhere, as they did with Napoleon many years ago. I don't get it. I really don't understand why we are so divided and continue to work on being so divided. I think the leadership has to fall to the Republicans to do something about it. I'm excited about what I think is going to happen on November the 22nd. I do believe there's going to be a red wave. I do believe we're going to take the control of the House as well as the control of the Senate. That will slow down some of these things, but I'm hoping that some of the leaders, and I really think it's the leaders in the Democratic Party that are the problem. Some of those leaders may well depart after seeing what happens on November the 22nd. That would be good in my judgment. We've got to find a way to talk to each other. We've got to find a way to disagree with each other in an agreeable manner. And if we all just continue to remember the Constitution, we're going to do what the Constitution says we can do, should do, and I think then we can start working on some unity.
I love what you're saying, but when you talk to, this is the ultimate dilemma when you're talking with people of the left who don't look at the Constitution as a great document.
No.
So how do you work through that? Because, for instance, George W. Bush was, as far as governor goes, he worked on both sides of the aisle. Bob Bullock, the lieutenant governor of Texas, endorsed him for president. This is a Democrat. And so when he got to Washington, all of that stopped. So we knew that Bush could work on both sides of the aisle, but he wasn't able to do it because the other side, the left, just won't allow it. So what do you think?
You have to start somewhere, Bob.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, the left wouldn't allow it. I don't disagree with that one bit.
Yeah.
But if we continue this, it's going to get worse. And it may become really worse. I mean, we're hearing all sorts of things being said about what happens next. Are we talking about a civil war? I certainly don't think so. I certainly don't want it to be. But let's start. We've got to start somewhere. I truly believe, when I was doing my consulting work, I met with a lot of state representatives and state senators who were Democratic. We had great conversation. Why can't we do that in Washington?
Congressman?
Okay, I'd say domestic and then foreign, right? So,
Sure.
all right, so domestically, clearly, internal division is our greatest threat, imploding from within. And you see that the Democrats are very good at it.
Yes, they are.
The internal strife, because again, their currency comes from the problem and not solving it. It doesn't come from the solution.
I love it.
And they are very good at identity politics. And they were very upset when President Trump figured out how to reverse he took their playbook and used it against them.
Yes.
And used a bit of identity politics, and it worked. And they're like, yeah, but only we can do that.
Yeah.
And
So true.
And it worked
That
to
is so
victory.
true. Yeah, yeah.
So
You're right.
that's a huge threat. And then there's the runaway spending domestically. That's a huge threat. We're at 29 trillion now. I never thought we'd say that. I remember when it was 10 and I was horrified. And then if, like, say, Build Back Broke, see, they call it Build Back Better. I call it Biden, Bernie, bankruptcy boondoggle. I call it the Quad B. Okay, so we can just refer to it. If we talk about it here in the remaining.
I love your little sayings. This is great.
Remember, no notes, no teleprompter. We got the Quad B. The Quad B is so bad that it creates 600 new federal programs. No, 150 new federal programs. It wants to hire 87,000 new IRS agents. I want to hire 87,000 new Border Patrol agents.
Hey, all right. Now there's something. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
let's talk about that.
Yeah.
And now what are those 87,000 Border IRS agents going to do? They're going to pry in our bank accounts because Janet Yellen wants to give them the authority if you spend in aggregate $10,000 or more a year. In aggregate, that's everybody. It's 29 trillion now. If Quad B passed, in 29 years, the debt in today's dollars is estimated to be 118 trillion. If Quad B passed, it'd be 140. So it doesn't cost 1.75 trillion. There's a good argument to be made that it costs 22 trillion. So that's how bad it is. That's a threat. The porous border is a huge threat because if you're not safe, then you're not free. And we're letting the Mexican drug cartels control our southern border, not the federal government. And then that internal strife. And that's what China's counting on. They're counting on the Malays. So then good segue into who's our greatest international threat. China. If the three greatest threats are China, China, and China. Yeah. All right. The Democrats are fixated on Russia. They are a threat. Putin is a tyrannical bad guy. I get that. We need to be very, very concerned about them. But China has 11 times the population of the Russians. They're almost on parity with us, and they have 5 times the amount of folks that we have. Mm-hmm. This is dangerous. This is scary. Their GDP, while almost on par, but they're raising their defense spending 7% this year. And Joe Biden wanted to keep ours flat. We did, and one of the big victories we did get was a $30 billion increase. Yeah. Ted Cruz ain't a friend of China. I'm not a friend of China. I want to be. I want to be a friend of a free China. I want to be a friend of China that understands why Tiananmen Square happened and stop ruling by the damn barrel of a gun. Because then the world, I mean, gosh almighty, think about that doomsday clock just goes way back. I mean, it relaxes. And so they don't act in their own interest because they're dictators. So.
Dan?
You know, I think the biggest threat to our nation that we face, so many of them, foreign adversaries, China, Russia, all looking to take down America. But I think the biggest threat that we face is coming from within. It won't matter how much money we spend on the military if the next generation of Americans decides that liberty is not worth fighting for. So we need to restore constitutional values again. We need to restore teaching real things to students. This critical race theory nonsense has got to stop. A lot of it's being funded and slipped into bills right in the U.S. Congress with your tax dollars and the endless money printing. Of course, they don't even bother taxing that much anymore. They just print more money to pay for this garbage. But the federal government is contributing to our own decay in so many ways because we do have congressmen that don't read the bills, that don't do their homework up there, that have misplaced priorities when they go to Washington, that are finding other ways to profit off of the system the way it is, not the system that they campaigned on, profiting off of the ever-expanding role of government in our society. So I believe that the biggest threat, in addition to all of the other foreign adversaries that we have, the biggest threat is coming right from the inside. We are decaying from the inside. We're losing our constitutional values. I worked with a lot of recent college graduates in my past profession, and if you try to explain to them what an unalienable right is, you might as well just be talking gibberish. They have no idea. They've never been taught it. They don't understand what it means to have a God-given right that the government cannot take away from you. They can only infringe upon it. And they don't understand natural law. All of these things used to be taught. They're not anymore. We need to bring our country back to those values.
You know, you talk about the values, constitutional values. They come across to me as a follower of Christ as biblical values more than even constitutional. And I look at I like your answer about, you know, we're killing ourselves from within, and I actually agree with that wholeheartedly. The problem is we have so much fatherlessness. We are now at a place where we call evil good and good evil.
Yes.
So how do we turn the corner?
Yeah. Quite frankly, as a follower of Christ myself, I believe that if we brought more people to Christ, and that happens on an individual level, I'm not talking any government policy.
Absolutely.
But if more people would turn back to Christ, and so many people have been exposed to Christian teachings, and they have friends, but there's so much cynicism, I believe, society-wide, and if everybody could maybe just take a moment to learn a little bit about the reality and the power that Christ can have in your life and the ability to change it, I believe that would be the absolute foundation for transforming anything in this country. When we have political issues that are clearly attacking the church in this country, shutting down churches, because we're afraid of this pandemic. That is something where I believe the government can step in and say, no, you cannot do this. You cannot shut down a church for any reason. They have a constitutional right to be open. You can't shut them down any more than you can stop a newspaper from printing. It's a constitutional right in this country. And if we can just restore the notion that this is a fundamental right of you to practice your religion in the way that you see fit in this country, then we can take a major first step toward laying the foundation of restoring constitutional values.
It's a very interesting idea that you have, that government is actually supposed to be protecting our rights, not infringing upon it in today. Yeah. Thank you. Very good, Dan. Thank you very much. You know, if elected, how will you address the crisis at the border? Dan, how would you answer that?
You know, the crisis at our border, number one, build the wall. I think I have to say that right off the bat, right? So everybody knows
I've heard that
phrase.
Before.
Yeah. So what can be done before the wall is built? Number one, I think that I would be in favor of shutting down all traffic on the border until we have Mexico's attention. We need their partnership to battle the cartels in this fight. I was talking with some troopers the other day. They cycle back and forth from the border. And they were telling me it's not really even drugs that they see coming across so much. It's human trafficking.
Yes.
And it affects our community,
Yes, it does.
As far north it's here. It affects the entire country. And people, I think, may not realize that it is in your community. Mm-hmm. Human trafficking is in your community. I have an advisor, Mike Henry, that works one-on-one with anti-human trafficking organizations right here. He goes and rescues kids that have been indoctrinated through the internet, and now they're being trafficked. It's all because of the cartels sending their people over the border. They'll rent out children to come across the border because the Biden administration doesn't want to separate families.
Right.
And so they see the same kids coming over with multiple parents. It's disgusting, and it needs to be shut down. And I would go so far as to shut down commercial traffic on the border until we have Mexico's attention and their true partnership in this fight. Remain in Mexico needs to be put in place. I know the courts have already ruled that. The Biden administration's slow walking the reimplementation. It needs to be put in place immediately. There's a lot of things that could be done. I'd be in favor of sending troops as well to the border if that's what it took. Whatever it takes, this has to happen, because every day that we don't do it is another child trafficked along the border. It's immoral. What's happening there is patently immoral, and I believe that we're called to stop it. We have the power to stop it. It needs to be stopped.
Excellent. I totally agree with that. Congressman, you mentioned the crisis at the border. How will you address the crisis at the border as a member of Congress?
President Trump had a policy that works, which was wait in Mexico, one of the best policies we've ever instituted at the border, which said that if you are claiming political asylum in the United States, you're going to wait in Mexico while we adjudicate your claim. Because we all know that most of these folks are economic refugees. So that was a great thing. We all know, if we want to be honest with ourselves, that Mexico is a de facto narco state. Okay, and that means it's Wild West. And it's ruled by the barrel of the gun, and you're on God's good grace.
Yeah.
And that is scary, scary business. If we were in, say, Guadalajara, and you did a program like this and exposed the Mexican drug cartel in any way, any form or fashion, you'll probably be dead within 24 hours.
Wow.
They murder any journalist, and people don't know this.
Yeah.
They don't know what's going on at the border. So we need to expose the truth. That's why I'm usually on television, whether it's
Newsmax, OAN, you're on those a lot.
Or,
yeah.
Those a lot, and Fox as well.
Yeah.
And I talk about it, and I try to bring attention to the real truth, because if the American people knew what was going on the border, they would demand that it be secured. Demand it. But the left doesn't care.
Yeah.
I've been to the border with President Trump, and I saw the Swiss cheese holes. You got this beautiful border wall, and then you got giant holes in it, and you got all those materials rotting. The people were there building it. It was paid for by the taxpayer. And then Joe Biden said, no, we're just going to let it rot and rust. So in answer specifically to your question, institute wait in Mexico, which the judiciary told Biden to do, and he's dragging his feet on it. Immediately get that back. Finish the wall. But then deer blind cameras help too, activate on motion.
Yeah.
Drones is another really good thing. More Border Patrol agents.
More Border Patrol
And take the damn cuffs off the guys and gals. They are some of our nation's finest, and they understand what their job is. They're trying to keep the narcotics out. They're trying to keep the drug cartels at bay, and they're trying to keep illegal immigrants from not entering.
Yep.
So
right.
That's the way I would do a comprehensive approach, and I would listen to the Border Patrol agents.
John?
Wow. Well, first thing we need to do is to enforce the laws that are on the books.
Wow, that's a unique idea. Where'd you come up with that one?
Yeah. I scratch my head a lot every day as I'm watching the news, and I just don't understand it. Enforce the laws. I really believe that. A lot of thought has gone into those laws. Yes, a lot of people on the left side, if you will, the Democratic side, don't agree with what we're trying to accomplish. Change the laws. But until then, we really should enforce the laws. That's the first thing. The second is we have to have a wall. We have to have a wall to protect, at least in Texas, if not Arizona and other places as well. But certainly that southern border has to be made secure. Now, I'll grant you that instead of putting up a tall and steel wall, there is technology available that will result in having the effect of a wall. That technology is going to require money. It's going to require a lot of people. We've got to support our Border Patrol. That means more of them and the technology that goes with it. So if you want to have a physical wall, okay, but we can also do it by using and absolutely enabling our Border Patrol and give them the technology they need to take care of business.
Very good. Very good. Our national debt, which is now over $29 trillion, is equated to the proverbial runaway train driving our nation into bankruptcy. Do you believe that the debt is a true threat to our economy, and what will you do as a member of Congress to get it under control? John?
That one also seems easy to me. I don't know why it's so difficult.
Really?
I do.
Okay, I'm interested.
I'll tell you this, and I've had this conversation with quite a few people. The problem in the United States at the federal level is not that we don't have enough revenue. Instead, we're spending too much. That is really the issue. Why are we spending so much? And the answer, of course, is everyone wants a piece of a pie. And so what happens to Congress? They don't want to make a decision on spending priorities. They want to add to the spending. And so they pass tax laws, or they borrow the money. And now let me give you an example of what borrowing that money is going to cause as a serious problem. And it's a serious problem not for someone like myself who has a comfortable retirement, but rather someone who is still working, particularly young people, and how on earth are they going to deal with some of the issues that we see today in our economy. Let me give you an example. It's an auction. Our economy is an auction. We have a limited amount of goods and services. We have people with money in their hands. They want to have those goods and those services. They bid for them. And as a result of bidding the highest, they get the goods they want. They get the services they want. This is okay so long as we're growing as a nation. because that economy is putting those dollars in their hand along with additional goods and services. That's good. That's a good thing. You put out debt, a small group of people get that debt money. And now that small group of people, they have some dollars. And we're still doing an auction. Who's going to bid the highest? The ones with the cash. One thing you find out is that gasoline now is up enormously. Groceries are up enormously. Everywhere you look, the prices are up enormously, yet people are buying. Everyone's saying, at least the ones that I'm listening to and reading about, why is everyone still buying? Because they have the money that was given to them, and that money came from debt. The result is inflation. That is the worst tax in the world, to have inflation. And that's what we've got right now, an economy that is in the middle of a mess. We have got to do something about it, and here's what I will do as a congressman. First of all, we will not take on any additional debt. Now, I would love to say to you that we're going to pay down that debt. It's $29 trillion.
Right.
We're not going to pay that down. It's like $85,000 per capita. In a household of four, you're looking at $320,000. I'm saying $1,000. Well, yeah, $1,000. That's not going to get paid down. But can we stop it? And the answer is yes. And if we insist that from now on there'll be no more increases in the debt ceiling, there'll be no more allowing having an unbalanced budget. Every fiscal year is going to be a balanced budget. We can do that, particularly after November 22nd when we take over the House and the Senate. We can do that. The other point I would want to make is I have done this for years. I understand that you have to budget some things that you literally don't know what they're going to cost. Natural disasters would be an example of that. You know you have to have money set aside in a reserve for that. But here's what's happening now in Washington, and I want to stop that too, and that is those reserves are there for a specific purpose. At the end of the fiscal year, if there's any balances, it goes back to the Treasury, and we start all over again.
So how are you going to stop that? You're one vote.
I am one vote. I'm a pretty good speaker. I hope you've seen that already. I think I can give my arguments in a cogent way, not a threatening way, and maybe win some people over. That's the whole idea.
Well, but in Congress, you're allotted so much time, and typically it's around 30 seconds by leadership, and it goes to another point that I hope. Give you two questions
Sure.
to tackle. First, I think one of the biggest problems is you said it's Democrats. I think it's Republicans because we had a president, President Bush. We had both houses of the House and Senate for 6 of his 8 years. And did we lower the debt? We increased the debt. We increased spending. We did. So Republicans and quote unquote conservatives were all a part of that.
Sure.
If you can't do it when we have a so-called conservative president and both houses, how do you think we're going to accomplish that?
Are you feeling any pressure today in the economy?
Oh, I think everyone is,
yes.
don't you? Yeah.
And I think because of that, there's going to be a bit more ability to have some conversations. And I'd like to say
I
this,
see.
too. Give a story. This is a true story.
Yeah.
I spent a lot of time with Ralph Hall. He was a wonderful man and a mentor and a family friend. I went to Washington with him. Deborah was with me. And we were there on other business. And we said, let's have dinner. And Ralph says, I'd love to. We had dinner together at the Capitol Hill. There was more conversation going on at that dinner table. Now, they were all Republicans, but nevertheless, there was more conversation going on at that dinner table than you ever see in the Hall of Congress. It just, yes, you only have 30 seconds, but Ralph was respected. They discussed some of the laws that were being considered and laws that just passed and what does it really mean. It was a good thing to do it that way. I think we can do more of it. And I think it's going to have to be done, Bob, because we're getting deeper and deeper into a bad situation.
All right. Congressman?
It's one of the greatest threats. I've already voted against the debt ceiling once. I promised everybody, I promised you in the studio that I would vote against the debt ceiling, and I would always do so. And we need to make the folks on appropriations understand that when the Republicans take over, we're not doing this anymore. And then they lie and they say, oh, no, we won't be able to pay our bills. We can't pay our bills. Yeah, we can. I mean, look at our revenue. It's something like our debt service is, I'm paraphrasing numbers here, but like roughly in the 40 billion range monthly. And I'm not on a probe, so I don't know exactly, and our revenue is like 300 billion monthly. We can pay the debt. We just had to cut some programs. See, they don't want that. They
Wow.
want spend. And then only in D.C., a 7% increase, if you cut it back to a 5% increase, that's a cut. Yeah. It's not a cut.
Boy, that's so true.
That's not a cut.
Yeah.
But that's how they talk. How to address it is always vote no on the debt ceiling and pass a balanced budget amendment. I grant you that's a big boulder and it's down at the bottom of the hill again. It went all the way up to the top. All the way up to the top. People don't know this. Late 90s. House, you need 2/3. It passed.
Right.
It passed out of the House.
Right.
Goes to the Senate. One vote. And it would have been kicked to the states. Unbelievable. We're that close. One vote. Nobody's having that conversation again. And I find it, quite frankly, insulting politically and professionally and personally when Democrats start talking about fiscal responsibility. They do that sometimes in the Armed Services Committee occasionally, and they did it on the House floor. I can't recall exactly. I was speaking about some fiscal matter, and the Democrat who was running their side said, well, this is fiscally irresponsible, da, da, da. And I went, oh, okay. And I changed my 1 minute, and I said, oh, if you want to talk about fiscal responsibility, why don't you join me in signing on to a balanced budget amendment? Because that would be great. Let's just spend what we take in.
Yeah.
You can't do that as a school board. You can't do that as a city. You can't do that as a county or as a state. You have to take in. You can't spend any more than you take in. And your expenditures match your revenues.
Yeah.
Why can't the federal government do that? Because they own a printing press down the street. I have a 15-year-old son and I have a 12-year-old son, and I want them to enjoy the fruits and liberties and the bounties of this country. And I want to make sure that America's best days haven't been counted yet for their sake.
All right. Thank you very much. Dan, how would you answer that?
It is absolutely a true threat to our economy. We're seeing the real world effects of the endless money printing right now. I mentioned earlier, they don't even bother to tax anymore. They just print money and spend it. This is money that our children's children will be paying back. They will be so indebted to that debt service and the big banks in this country that they will not be able to do anything to function to properly fund the government. Mm-hmm. And you talked about threats to our society. I believe this is part and parcel to the inward decay that we have. People, I don't know if it's a math literacy issue or what, but people have to understand that we are beyond the point of theory on this topic. This is not is it a threat? No, it is threatening right now. We are seeing out of control inflation brought on by endless money printing in Washington, D.C. It has to stop. We need people who can stand up. This district needs to do its part to stand up to the gigantic spending bills that are coming through Congress. And I will absolutely be on the side of limiting the government. I think that it starts with balancing the budget. Municipality after municipality in this country has, in their city or county charter, they have a balanced budget clause saying that you can't go on to the next year unless you've paid for everything that you're going to spend next year. And so they have to work to get that budget balanced. We just print money in the federal government out of thin air just to pay for whatever social program pops into the mind of a president with decaying mental faculties. And so we're doing things that mathematically are impossible to sustain. People have to understand that. This is not a theory. This isn't left versus right. This is people with common sense versus the Washington elite. They want to keep on printing money because so many of them are profiting off the very system, the expansion of government. Maybe they have a side business that does business with the department that they oversee. Maybe they're just making so much money on the stock market. Who knows what they're up to up there behind our backs, but they're ignoring the biggest issue facing us, and that is the pending bankruptcy of this country. We are on track for it. This is not a theory. This is happening before our very eyes. The endless money printing leads to the out-of-control inflation that we see. It's happening right in your grocery store. It's happening everywhere you look. Hot cocoa the other day. I saw the hot cocoa pack. Used to be 12 in a pack. Same price, now you get 6. That's inflation. Go look in your grocery store, everybody. It's sneaking up on us. Not really sneaking anymore. It's right in our face. So yes, the national debt being out of control is not only a threat to our generation, it's a threat to generations to come.
But Dan, every year Congress has to vote to increase the debt ceiling.
Yes.
So how would you deal with that?
You know, well, I would vote no.
Okay.
I want to answer your question directly.
Even though it would shut down the government, which is what Democrats always threaten.
Yeah, sure. And as a reporter, I covered many government shutdowns, and I can tell you,
I guess you did.
It was awfully frustrating trying to find a human who was impacted by it. The government shut down, and life went on. So I wouldn't be afraid to shut down the government. In fact, I'm not sure I ever was able to find a single person in the real world that was affected other than maybe some federal employees that had to wait a week or two extra to get their paycheck, which is horrible, but it shouldn't happen. But the problem isn't the debt ceiling argument. To me, that's the red herring.
Okay.
The problem is when they voted for the spending bill to begin with.
Yeah.
If you're going to vote and go along with the $1 trillion spending bills, then you can't have it both ways. You can't vote for that bill and then all of a sudden say, I'm not going to raise the debt ceiling. So, you have to have a balanced approach, I think, as a representative, that you're not going to be a part of the ongoing money printing machine in Washington.
Very good. On which congressional committee do you hope to serve, and why is serving on them important to you? Dan, how would you answer that?
Well, I think there are several that if I was so blessed to win this race that I would be able to serve on. Energy and commerce, agriculture would be one of my top ones. I don't
Why
want to
is
leave
that?
any out. Well, in Texas, obviously, and especially our district, I hear from so many farmers and ranchers and people in the energy industry who are just absolutely either their business is being destroyed. We're in the process of it right now with meat producers especially, and farmers. The price of fertilizers quadrupled lately. And so a lot of this is brought on, again, by general things that Congress has done. Inflation's hitting them hard. Energy policy is out of control in this country. We need to bring back the power to our own shores to be energy independent. So if there was a way that I could be a part of a solution on that committee, I would absolutely want to do that. But I think this is beyond the ones that affect our specific industries here in this district. I believe that one of the biggest committees that you could sit on to change this country for the better would be the Ethics Committee. We have too many congressmen who are up there profiting off the ever-expanding role of government. We need to put a stop to that. That alone could change so much. That could change so many votes on these out-of-control spending bills where there's these certain red flag laws inserted into them. Maybe they want to get women to register for the draft, but you go along with it just because it's a huge spending bill, or who knows what the personal motivations are. But we do know that if they're endeavoring to do things that are clearly unethical, in their votes, it's going to be reflected. So we need a strong ethics committee who's willing to enforce the rules that they already have there in Congress. We have this thing called the STOCK Act, Stop Trading on Congressional Knowledge Act. It's essentially insider trading for Congress, and your listeners can Google it up.
60 Minutes did a whole report on that years ago,
Yeah. And the thing that was shocking to me is that year in and year out, we see congressmen violating this act quite willfully. In fact, whether it's through late reporting or maybe they decide to dump a bunch of options on stock that they had after they learned about something in a committee, who knows? But they violated. The fine? $200. There are parking tickets out there that cost more money than that. $200 fine. Now, if you did that in your personal business, if you work for a publicly held company and you got caught insider trading, you're looking at $1 million fine and federal prison time. A congressman does it based on knowledge that they got in a committee, $200. They go turn themselves in most of the time. A lot of times they don't even bother to report until months and months and months later, just to delay the whole thing, see if anybody's watching, and then they go ahead and report it. By then it's old news. Whatever happened back in the stock market then, who can even remember? And so they go ahead and report themselves, pay that $200 fine. A lot of times they don't even levy the $200 fine, and they move on. So one of the biggest committees that we can have to bring this Congress under control, to stop the conflicted Congress that we have, to stop these profiteer politicians from going up there and turning a blind eye on our conservative values and whatever values they campaigned on would be the Ethics Committee.
So, Dan, the show is called Straight Talk. So, what are you talking about? I mean, are you talking about Congressman Fallon? And if so, can you?
I urge everybody to do their research on this, and they're going to have to make up their own mind about the person they have representing themselves right now. I like to talk about the things that I'm about, and so I believe passionately that it's not any one congressman that goes up there. It's the people that we elect that go up there and they become part of the system immediately, often, and it happens at an alarming rate once they get up there. We need people who can stand up to it, no matter what the personal cost is to them. So everybody can do their research on everything that we've talked about here today, and they can make up their own mind.
Okay. Very good. Thank you. John?
Well, this will be an easy one. My very first choice is the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence.
Okay.
I mean, it's...
I wonder why.
Yeah.
Sounds like a good fit.
This particular select committee requires oversight that only an experienced, intelligent agent can provide. And I bring those skills. I bring that knowledge. Someone will say, well, you really dealt with the issues of the Soviet Union. Yes, we saw the demise of the Soviet Union, but there's a guy named Putin, Vladimir Putin. He remembers the Soviet Union. And he made a statement just recently that was very telling. And he said about the Ukraine, this belongs to Lenin. Now, you take that for any way you want, but he's making it very clear. The Russian Federation, back when there was a Soviet Union, had 17 different states, and he wants them back.
Yeah, he seems to long for those days, doesn't he?
So, yes, I would love to do that. I don't know if that'd be my first choice. I don't have much ability to say that's what I must do or else I'm not going to do it. The other one is education. And I think that's kind of interesting. I can do military intelligence, and I think I can do a really special job on that, but also in education. I did pre-K through 12 when I was working with the public charter schools, and we were doing phenomenal things, mostly to the underserved community. And that just made my heart feel good. I would be seeing youngsters that come from lower socioeconomic conditions or whatever condition that worked against them are blossoming when they get to a public charter school that gives them the attention and the tools that they need for math and reading. Almost every one of them excelled. Almost every one of them got accepted into college after graduating from high school. Not only did I do K through 12 and know it very well, I also know higher education even better. I did that for so many years. And trust me, when you're talking, for example, in Cleveland, Ohio, I was an executive vice president. My board was made up of citizens from Cleveland, Ohio, and most of them were, well, in fact, I think all but one happened to be Democrats, and pretty strong Democrats. How do you get along with them? How can you figure this out? I think I can do it because I've done it before, and therefore I would be happy to go into the higher education. I have a crazy idea, and I wonder, do we really need to have a Department of Education? And I'd like to have a conversation about that. Does that belong to the states, or does that belong to the federal government? There are many federal programs that come out of the federal government, but do you really want the federal government to have that much control? I see stuff happening now with CRT that just drives me crazy. I've experienced that in my lifetime, and it was not a pleasant experience. I can only imagine the confusion and even anger that some of our young people are feeling because of what's going on.
Very good. Thank you. Congressman, which congressional committees are you on, and why is serving on them important to you?
I'm on the Armed Services Committee.
Yeah.
Absolutely love it. So when you get to Congress, many people come up to you and they say, on our side, and they'll say, you should get on one of these committees if you can. They're the A committees. Okay. I don't know any of this stuff at the time. And I say, okay, Ways and Means, Appropriations, Energy and Financial Services, and Rules. Because you can raise lots of money. That's what you need to do. You raise money, you become important, your options open if you ever wanted to bump up, maybe run for Senate, that kind of thing. Anything federal, or president, I guess, because there's only 2 federal offices above ours. Or you can defend your seat. See, but then what that happens when you got a pile of money, you get $3-4 million bucks, then you can vote poorly in D.C. but cover it up like so many of those other people that we beat. That kind of, it's this formula, right? And I thought about that, and I go, no, I didn't come here to raise money. I didn't come here to make friends either. I came here to fight socialism, fight Marxism, and fight for Texas liberty and freedom and really prosperity.
Yeah.
Keep the government off the small business owners' back. And corporations aren't the devil. In fact, they're an integral part of a successful, thriving, market-based economy. And so I said, where's my best and highest use? And this is why I asked myself that 2 years ago when I was in the Texas Senate already. Is my best and highest use for our cause in the Texas Senate, or should I go to Congress? Or should I at least try to go to Congress because it wasn't up to me?
Right.
And I ended up making that choice because I felt that we could better message. And I really thought that I could do a better job than a lot of the Republicans that I'd seen on television. And I hope that's the case.
And you've done it. You've met that challenge,
you.
by the way, in my opinion. Yeah.
And I've been on a lot, and I get on a lot, and we have a pretty much standing policy of we'll take them. If it's an interview, I'll take it, because I can't pass legislation right now under Nancy Pelosi in her house, and so that's what we want to do moving forward. Your best and highest use. My best and highest use, I believed, was to be on armed services because I've been reading. I'm a history minor. My degree in college was in government and international relations. I was in the Air Force. I've been working with the military and the military members. That's where my interests lie. That's where the books that I've read, hundreds, thousands of these. So I said, I think that's the best and highest use. We have Red River Army Depot in the district. I wanted to defend that. I promised folks in Bowie County that I would do that. I have, and successfully. We were able to get them $180 million to retrofit Humvees. And that's not going to go just to Red River, but it's going to go to other places. Instead of Dick Durbin wanting to spend $12 billion to replace them all. You don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. You can fix them, do it on the cheap, and save that $12 billion. Wow. And
it's a unique idea.
Yeah, we can
Congress,
fix it.
Yeah.
Fancy that. So my best and highest use was clearly for me, and I couldn't get both. I'm a freshman, it's fine, but I got armed services because I think my other committee should be foreign affairs. I'm very well versed in it. I enjoy it, and I read a quote once that said, "People should read as inclination leads them, for what they read as a task will do them little good." So if you're interested in a topic, knock it the hell out. And then when I talk to people that I respect, John Ratcliffe being among them, and others, to say, hey, how can I be the best member of Congress? And John's been very gracious and lovely, and so is Michelle, his wife. And he said, Pat, get on the committees that you're interested in. This district loves you. You're going to be fine. You're not going to need to raise lots of money. Just be the best member. And that was his approach as well. So I've emulated his approach.
All right. Well, thank you. And I appreciate, and I hope this has been helpful for you to hear from the candidates and answering some tough questions. But I want to give each candidate the opportunity to talk directly to you and explain why they are the best choice for your vote for Congress in this as the Republican representative on the ballot for Congress. So with that, Congressman Fallon.
So, I think the main reason why you should vote to return me to D.C. is as I said during the interview, you're hiring a conservative fighter. I've been a conservative activist for 30 years. I was a precinct chair. I was a city council member and a conservative city council member at that. I was the mayor pro tem of the fastest growing city in America. I was a state house member for 6 years, voted against an incumbent Republican speaker because he was, and I use this word very sparingly, a rhino. He was completely a Republican in name only, and you see it now with all the op-ed pieces he's writing, hammering Republicans, not just Donald Trump, hammering Republicans in our agenda. Clearly, the code is off, and we know where he really stood all along. And then in the Texas Senate, I took out a 17-year incumbent by a 40-point margin, the largest and widest margin in the history of Texas against the Senate incumbent since 1845, because he'd forgotten who he worked for. So I knocked lots of doors and I talked to people and I was genuine. And then following through with what I said I was going to do, I actually authored a permanent ban on the income tax in the state of Texas. It's permanently banned. And God Almighty, what happened? COVID. Nobody ever saw that coming. And that would have been a perfect excuse to institute a state income tax. If they were ever going to do it in Texas, we need this. It's a pandemic. It's an emergency. So they can't. They don't have that option because you need 2/3 of the House, 2/3 of the Senate, and then you're going to need voter approval. And that's just not going to happen ever. And we raised that standard. I'm very proud of that. But if you look past at the record, I co-authored the Sanctuary Cities ban in Texas. We have the toughest ban on sanctuary cities in the country. And I was a part of that. We passed HB2 in 2013 that protected life. I also co-authored that. And I'm one of the most conservative members of the U.S. Congress. As Bob mentioned, Heritage Action at 98%. A+ rating. The NRA has endorsed me 7 times. They're going to come out with their endorsement on January 24th. It'll be interesting to see who they endorse. I don't know for sure, but we'll see on the 24th. And, by any measure, we've knocked it out of the park. And I try to be humble about this, and you don't really want to talk about yourself, but as a candidate, you're really compelled to and you're forced to. President Trump thinks so. Ted Cruz thinks so. Jim Jordan thinks so. The NRA may think so. We'll see. The Farm Bureau, and that's important in a rural district. We have parts that are very rural. They've also endorsed me, and thousands of people across the district. We've had dozens of town halls. I love doing them. We're going to do several more because you matter. At the end of the day, you matter. You want to save the country? Help me save the country. Send me back to D.C. I'm going to be one cog in the greater conservative machine. But conservative populism is going to save this country. And it's worth fighting for. And as I said, you know what I want my epitaph to say? Probably what you're going to want yours to say. You, Bob, me, everyone. Is that he loved his country and he loved his family and he fought for both. And that's what we're doing in Congress. And I'd really appreciate your vote. And God bless you and God bless Texas.
Thank you very much. Dan?
Well, Bob, first of all, thanks for having me on. You do a fantastic job. You're
Thank you.
a great American, and we appreciate everything you do for the conservative cause. I want to just say to the people listening out there, do your research on this race. Find out everything you can about it and make an informed decision. I got into this race because my life was turned upside down because of this ridiculous Biden vaccine mandate. I've learned about all sorts of other ways that many other businesses and individuals have been affected by government overreach. It has to stop. Together we can do it. We can be a voice in Washington for not only for the conservative cause, but for just plain old American common sense. We can bring back constitutional values to this country. It has to be done. It can start with this district. This district can be a leading voice in the conservative debate in this country, and we can restore this country. It doesn't happen if you're sending up profiteer politicians who go along with the Washington elite system just because that's the way to make money up there. It has to start with people who aren't afraid to stand up to it no matter what the personal cost is to them. That's my promise to voters. Again, if they don't give me enough time to read that bill, my vote is going to be no every time. I can promise you that. So we're going to go to Washington and we're going to do things to put this country back on the right track. It starts with putting in place the Constitution, restoring our country to constitutional values.
Very good. Thank you, Dan. With that, Dr. Harper, I'll let you talk to the voters.
Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
Before I actually do that, I want to thank you for the conversation. I enjoy this kind of conversation.
Good.
It was fun as well as informative. So thank you for setting this up.
Thank
very
you.
much.
I appreciate it.
So I'd like to talk to the voters. And the first thing I got to say, these are serious times, very serious times. And they require a serious member of Congress. I am that person. I have more than 50 years of public service. I do not have a learning curve. I'm ready to serve effectively from the day that I am sworn in. My intent is to fix the problems that I see in the district operations and in the D.C. operations and serve all 12 counties, not just a few. I do not intend to retire from Congress. I already have a very comfortable retirement. I left that to serve you. I will fix the problems as soon as I can and then find, in support, a candidate to replace me in the same honorable way that Sam Johnson, Ralph Hall, and John Ratcliffe did so well. I love the USA. I love Texas. It'll be my privilege to serve you. I'll serve you with integrity and dignity and as well patriotism. So, if you want to be represented by a patriot, a proven servant leader, a passionate Texas and the Texas way of life, look to none other than me. I will earn your trust and respect. I am the best candidate to represent the residents of North and Northeast Texas, and I am asking for your vote. Again, thanks for taking the time to get to know me. I hope to get to know you better over the next several weeks, and God bless Texas.
Thank you, John. Well, I hope this has been helpful for you as you decide who is best to earn your vote in this election. And I do hope that you'll pass this show along to those other voters out there who would like to be informed before they hit the ballot box. And don't forget that Election Day is on March 1st. Don't forget the words of Thomas Jefferson, who said that when government fears the people, there is liberty. When the people fear the government, there is tyranny. We are a government of the people, by the people, and for the people, so vote, and let's keep it that way. We'll see you next time. Blessings.